3rd chapter, starting at the 1st verse. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was 3 cubits and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set up in the plain of Daraz, in the province of Babylon. The 4th verse. Then a herald cried aloud, to you is commanded, O people, nations, and language, that at which time you hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the psaltery, the pastry. I'm going to paraphrase. You'll fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And the 6th verse, and whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning furnace. The 8th verse, wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. You may be seated. God asks a blessing upon those who hear your word. Let an understanding come forth to your people. Let it go in and cut between the joints and the marrow.
Yes,
and let them see
Lord.
the purpose, the time and the season of their life, whether when you call them and you have a plan and you have a purpose. Yes. And they must realize it is not about them. Yes. It is about the kingdom and the things that you desire to establish in the earth. And you're just using us to establish your word and to establish your purpose.
Thank you, God.
We all desire to be promoted. But when God comes in to promote us, there are things around us that desires us not to be promoted.
Come on with
there
it.
are things that hinder us. There are things that come in and block us. And I'm going to go backwards to give you a little brief history of how the Hebrew boys got to this point. They were taken captive from their homeland and brought to Babylon. It was prophesied by Isaiah when Hezekiah the king showed the strangers all his household. And he said, because you've done this, your city shall be carried away captive into Babylon. And sometimes, church, things will happen to you that you have no control over. But we have to realize sometimes to do and to accomplish the thing that God desires to accomplish in our life, He has to move us out of our comfort zone. He has to move us out of our familiarities and move us away from family and friends into a strange land and a strange place. Because sometimes we get too comfortable. But even in doing this, you have to realize even when God puts you in a strange place, an unfamiliar place, you have to stay faithful to what God has called you to do and who God has called you to be. Just because the people around you don't know your God and what God is doing, you know your God and what God has required of you. And in the 1st chapter, Daniel said, oh no, I cannot do this. I cannot drink wine and eat from the king's table. I cannot defile myself. And when you're in a position to be promoted by God, some things will come to tempt you, to defile you, and to make you an unclean vessel so God cannot use you, so God cannot operate in your life. But Daniel said, I know who I am, and I'm going to ask you to prove me for 10 days if my way is not better. And church, just because it's offered to you, it does not mean you have to accept it. If you know truly who God is, you will take a stand for what is right. You will take a stand for God. And for a topic, the word of God is at stake. It's not your word. It's not your decision. It is the word of God that is at stake. It is the word of God that's on the line.
Oh, yes.
And God is using you as a vessel in the earth to get His glory.
Oh, yes,
and
Lord.
sometimes, church, when God desires to get His glory, you don't understand what's going on. You can't figure it out. Because church, surely, it's little by little. We walk away from God. It's not one giant step. It's a little backsliding here. It's a little giving in here. It's a little compromising there. But Daniel said, oh no, I know who God is. And I know He's called me. And as I stay faithful, God will elevate me.
Yes, He will.
And because He took the stand, it says in the first chapter, at the end of the time the king had set aside, which was 3 years, they were brought in before the king. But before they brought him in, God said, I give you all knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And He gave Daniel the interpretation of visions. God will not send you anywhere unequipped and unprepared. Whatever God sends you, whatever God has you to do, He equips you, He prepares you. And you're well able to perform the task. So it says, when the king began to question them, when the king asked them, he says, I find you, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to be 10 times better than anybody in my whole kingdom. And He set them up to be rulers over all the people that were there before Him. And I'm telling you, church, if you will obey and stand fast to what God is commanding you, He shall elevate you above your enemies, above everybody around you. These people have been at this for years. And in 3 years, they came in and surpassed everyone.
Jesus.
Now this is the first promotion. There's 3 promotions. This promotion was given to them by the king because he saw them to be 10 times better. In the second chapter, the king had a dream, and the dream left him. And he called in all the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers, and asked them about the dream. I'm telling you, church, there are some things going on that God is setting you up for a blessing.
Yes, it is.
People around you are confused. They're out of their wits end. What is going on in the world, the economy? But in you have peace. And God keeps speaking a word to you. It's going to be all right. Just hold on. I got something coming down the line for you. Just stay faithful. And in that, the king became so angry. As you look at the economy and the world system, people are dying, committing suicide left and right because they lost a job or home.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I want you to think about it honestly. You're in the same world, the same circumstances, but you have a peace that passes all understanding.